much for joining us for today's program. As teased during the legislative session, we are migrating our three top headlines you need to know from Tallahassee into a program focused on interviewing those figures that are running for or currently serve in Tallahassee that are key players in the healthcare debate for the state of Florida. So Joe and I are excited to go into this new phase of communicating with our members and introducing you guys to people you need to know that are going to be major players in the state of Florida moving forward. So we look forward to this opportunity. Joe, as always, I'd give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Thank you, Frazier. It's always good to see you. My name is Joe Daraskovich, and I work alongside Frazier at several medical societies across the state of Florida, and we're just happy to be able to bring these updates to our physician members. And this is exciting. We're starting to interview some of the candidates. So Frazier, I'll let you take it from there.
Fantastic. And we are so excited to have our first session in this new series with one of our favorite physicians from Northeast Florida, Dr. James St. George, who is a past president of the Duval County Medical Society, has been a leader within the Florida Medical Association for a number of years, and is running for the Florida House District 19. So Dr. St. George, thanks so much for being with us. And you want to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Frazier, Joe. Appreciate it. So Florida House 19 is the district currently held by the Speaker of the House, Paul Renner. So as many of you know, in Florida, we have term limits. Speaker Renner was Speaker for the last 2 years of his 8-year term, and he has to vacate that seat at 8 years. So it's an open seat race, of which I'm one of three candidates in the race.
Fantastic. And we'll dive into that a little bit later in our series of questions. But first, I want to ask you at the very beginning, as a physician running for office, obviously you're a bit of a unicorn. Not many physicians get into the process. Tell us a little bit about kind of how you got to this point, where you are professionally in your career as a physician, and how you made this decision to run for public office.
Probably drank too much one night. I got energized by getting involved with organized medicine. Initially, when I first started practice in Jacksonville 14 years ago, I joined DCMS, and that got organized, and that led me into getting involved with the Florida Medical Association as a delegate, and that led me to volunteer on other bases. So one day, someone came back to me and said, "Hey, I just nominated you for the FMA PAC," and I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, what's a PAC?" Physicians historically are not well versed in politics. We're not engaged. I was like many physicians, really didn't give a damn. Mostly, our job is to take care of patients. We're trained that way. We're not brought up on the advocacy piece and understanding organized medicine. So like many physicians, my head was in the sand. It wasn't until I got involved with the FMA I realized that's not a good place to be. There's an old saying in politics: if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. It's a cliche, but it is so true. Right now, we only have 2 physicians in the House, the Florida House. Dr. Masulo, who is a dermatologist, he is terming out this year. That will leave 1 physician, Dr. Rudman, who's from the Panhandle. We are low-hanging fruit for bad things to happen. Every year, the FMA spends a lot of energy stamping out bad bills that are going to hurt us financially, hurt us professionally, scope bills. We're easy targets because we don't engage. And all this energized me and brought me, I retired from the practice in January, and I'm not ready to sit on the porch. I think I can make a difference and have positive change to help our profession.
Well, and Dr. St. George, that kind of leads us into our next question, that given your training and background, you're going to have a unique perspective on a wide range of healthcare bills that will be considered during your time in Tallahassee. Tell us a little bit about your priorities and where you believe you can have the biggest impact.
So, the House is complicated. The more I understand, the more I don't understand. There is a whole institutional knowledge, one that we have as physicians are not trained well in. We are trained to treat disease, evidence-based. I think a lot of physicians in the historic who went to the House thought, "I'm going to fix this. There's a problem. We're going to fix it." No, you're not. It's a process, and it's sometimes a very long, arduous process. And the greatest thing you can do to get change accomplished is to position yourself as a chair of an important committee, in this case, healthcare. And ideally, if you are able to, if you're very good at what you do and you're honest and work hard, maybe you can be part of leadership. And the combination of having a voice in leadership and being a chair on a table in a supermajority Republican district, and I'm running as a Republican, in a supermajority House rather, you can actually get things across the finish line and accomplish change. At the same time, prevent hopefully bad things from happening. You know, we see a lot of you know, the plaintiffs bar, for example. They, you know, every session they want something more to come and sue people with. In our case, malpractice or other conditions. So tort reform is a big one. The insurance industry, you know, prior authorization and all the issues that we as physicians face every day in private practice, trying to just get payment for what you've done. You've done a service, you deserve payment, and they make that very impossible. You have to hire people to appeal, hire people for pre-authorization. It's, and we again are a voice that needs to be heard more than we are. And the only way to be heard is to either be part of the process, which I'm doing now, or contribute to that process. And we can talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, and that was a great segue, Dr. St. George, into kind of our next question, which is, you know, you're in the heat of this right now. You're in the middle of a campaign. You've been exposed to the inner workings of politics and running for office. Our audience is primarily a physician audience, and oftentimes they're unsure how to engage in the process or where to get started. Kind of what have you learned through your path as far as the best ways for physicians back there to actually engage in the process, how you get your feet wet and get involved? Maybe not to the degree you are, but everybody can contribute, right?
So, you know, like everything we do in life, it's time or money. So what I'm doing is a huge amount of time. Next level down is engage, you know, with the Florida Medical Association, either as a delegate or, you know, advocacy, going to Tallahassee, meeting with legislators. That's time. And then, you know, many of us in our profession, we already don't have enough time. Or, you know, family and professional lives don't give us a lot of flexibility. And really, a really big place you can help is with money. Unfortunately, getting the ear of legislators or running for office takes money. That lobbyists is a huge industry. I mean, these lobbyists get money from every sector in the state, whether it's healthcare or the insurance industry or the plaintiffs bar. The plaintiffs bar and the insurance industry are huge industries. They have incredible amounts of money, obscene amounts of money that they pay lobbyists to influence legislators and hopefully get legislation that's favorable to them or hurt legislation that's unfavorable. As a legislator or someone trying to be a legislator, it takes a lot of money. Campaigning is very expensive. My particular district includes Flagler County. Flagler County is part of the Orlando TV market. So my district is part Orlando TV market, part Jacksonville TV market. Jacksonville is not too bad. Orlando, if I run a broadcast commercial, which you really have to do when you run for office to reach the voters, because really this is a marketing. You're trying to market to a voter, to engage them and to influence them to vote for you. And there's many different ways to do this. TV, of course, there's direct mail, there's digital Facebook ads. All that takes a huge amount of money. It's just as an example, the TV market in Orlando is very expensive. I'm broadcasting the whole market to really just get a small sliver in Flagler County. A 30-second spot in the Orlando market is $200,000 to $300,000. How else do you get your message across? You got to get the message across. You could be God's gift to politics. Doesn't matter. If you can't get your message out there, and that takes a lot of funding to do that. And the only way to do that is to raise money. So doctors in the audience, hopefully I've called you. If not, I hopefully will. You know, physicians just don't understand that important piece. And that's where most physicians in the state can influence the outcome of their lives professionally, in terms of good and bad legislation, is by supporting candidates that are friendly to medicine. We've had some good ones in the past. Obviously, a physician running for office is going to be very friendly to medicine, and if that physician is in a leadership position or chair of healthcare, that person can make or break legislation that's good or bad for us.
Dr. St. George, that was a great example of, just that little slice of that Orlando market is still costing you the same as, being in the whole pie. Let's move on and talk a little bit about the race. You're running, as you mentioned, for a seat currently occupied by the Speaker of the House, and you have opposition in the campaign. What advice have you received from current and former legislators in terms of the keys to victory and ultimately the experience of serving a local constituency?
Key to victory: raise money.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, really to date, I filed in May, and all my efforts to date, now even still, is raising the appropriate funds to successfully run. So there's three of us in the race. There's a gentleman who's 23, 25 years old, really no life experience, got in over a year ago, has raised maybe 50,000, of which he maybe has 20 to 30,000 cash on hand to run his actual campaign. Nice gentleman. He's just doesn't have the resources yet to really compete. He'll try to win through a grassroots campaign, knocking on doors, volunteers. Hopefully that in his mind will get him across the finish line. There's 12,000 primary voters going to vote in this election. It's probably not a great primary voter out turn, because the presidential primary is different. We don't have any big statewide races other than Rick Scott. So it's the turnout's probably going to be around 12,000, but you have to reach those 12,000 people. The other candidate's a gentleman, also young, went to Georgetown Law, volunteered in Capitol Hill for a year or two, joined the JAG service to check the veteran box. He wants to be a career politician. He got out of the JAG service in February and immediately filed to run against me. Again, no life experience. He's been in school, been a lawyer for the Navy, but he's raised over 150. So he is he's a serious contender, and I have to take that very seriously. And the only way to beat these individuals is through the generous contributions of people hearing this and physicians I call and say, let's get this done. The only way to get elected is to have the resources for direct mail, TV, all the your campaign manager, all the marketing materials necessary to reach those 12,000 voters, to have them check the box next to your name. So that's the biggest challenge in any campaign. And then of course, the last few months are a sprint. The primaries in August, and everything from now on is just going to be a full out sprint to that finish line.
Yeah, and you are talking about small margins, right? You're talking about 12,000 voters, and I think most physicians forget that, right? When they look at this, they're very small margins that determine a lot of these races, and every little bit counts, like every bit of volunteerism, every bit of money that's given. It all has to come together for a very small margin, to be successful.
This particular district I'm running is probably, depending on the numbers you look, anyways from 10 to 20% Republican. So it's a Republican seat. It's a safe Republican seat. The real election here is actually the primary race, because once you win the primary, then the general is going to be a foregone conclusion. The Republican is going to walk away with that election, because the differential in voters between Republican and Democrats, a Republican seat. But to your point, Fraser, our current speaker is Speaker Paul Renner. He previously ran for House a few years prior to his current seat. He ran in Jacksonville against a gentleman named Jay Fine. He lost by 2 votes. He lost that election by 2 votes. So elections have consequences. That's another cliche that's very true. And we see that every day in the world today. When one administration takes over from another administration, there are consequences. And we also, that race proves that every vote counts. So if you do have narrow margins in a race, it's very, very important to get to those voters. And again, the only way to do that is through, good fundraising. Unfortunately, it's the hardest part of running for any seat is raising the money to do it.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue as we come to a conclusion of this program. Several of the PACs that we represent are going to be donating to the campaign today in recognition of you being with us and spending some time with us and helping educate our members and getting the word out about our campaign. We'd also encourage those folks who are watching to consider their own personal donations too. So I got this is the high budget program we're working on, Dr. St. George.
Love
This
the
is the
graphic.
votestgeorge.org. So you can go online and contribute today and do your part again to elect certainly a pro-medicine candidate that's experienced within organized medicine. And hopefully we can do this interview again after the primary in August.
Final point. So
Yeah.
we've raised over 400,000. That puts me probably almost 3 times the next competitor, but it changes with every report. So we don't know what the other guy's going to do in the end of this month. It could change dramatically. You never know. I've had endorsements by the state firefighters. I have endorsement by the Police Benevolent Association, the Fraternal Police. So I have police and firefighters. I have Congressman Aaron Bean, Congressman Neil Dunn, who's also a physician, and I have Congresswoman Kat Kamick. Of course, I have the Florida Medical Association and all the societies throughout the state. Medicine's behind me here. We are very well positioned to win this. Now I just need everyone's help to get across the finish line.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a great way to sum this up. And as I was mentioning, hopefully we'll be doing this interview next year when you're a sitting member of the Florida House and you can reflect on those bills you are impacting for medicine in the state. So, Joe, any final thoughts for us before we wrap up?
No, that was great. I think we touched on a lot of things that maybe not all the physicians knew about, and really highlighted what you're doing with your campaign. So, Dr. St. George, I just really appreciate the time today.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate yours as well. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And remember, vote stgeorge.org. Thanks, Dr. St. George.
Thank you, guys. Take care.